Welcome, Lakota Sichas, Chelek Yud Aleph, Parshas Teruma, the first Sicha. This is a Sicha that covers many fundamental ideas in our relationship with Hashem, starting from how we get up in the morning, davening, learning, and serving Hashem throughout the day. We're not going to cover the Sicha in the actual text, but we're going to go through it as it's laid out in the Sicha before us. So here we go. As we are all aware, the second half of the book of Shmos deals almost exclusively with the creation of the Mishkan, a home for Hashem on earth. And the opening lines, this week's Torah portion, Teruma, Hashem tells Moshe that you need to start the capital campaign. You need to collect funds to be able to build this Mishkan. And the word Teruma appears 3 times in the opening sentences of this week's parsha. The word Teruma means a dedication, a contribution. Literally, it means to elevate, because when you do contribute, you're taking from your private property and you're giving it to a holy cause. You're elevating that gold, that silver, whatever you've contributed. You're being meirim, you're lifting it up, and therefore you're contributing it. And that's called a Teruma, a contribution. So the word Teruma, Hashem tells Moshe they should give a contribution, and he mentions this word contribution, Teruma, 3 times. It's not just in our Torah portion, actually in 2 weeks from now, in the Torah portion of Kisisa. Again, we're going to be discussing the contributions. And again, the word Teruma L'Hashem, to give a contribution to Hashem, that also appears 3 times. And Rashi, in both places, quotes the Gemara, the Medrash, and tells us as follows. This was not one general fund. The 3 words Teruma actually refer to 3 separate campaigns. 3 separate funds. Each Teruma would go to a different cause and was for a different purpose. The first one is called the Teruma of the Shekalim, which means every single Jew gave half a shekel. Now, this wasn't a one-time contribution. This wasn't a capital campaign. This was actually an annual campaign. One of the 613 mitzvahs in the Torah is that a Jew every single year should give half a shekel to the Beis HaMikdash. For Pesach, there would be collectors that would go around, and everyone would contribute. Those funds would be used to pay for the Karbanos Tzibur, the communal offerings. Every single day in the Beis HaMikdash, there was a Tamid Shel Shachar, a Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim. There was a daily offering in the morning, daily offering in the afternoon, and these were brought on behalf of the entire Jewish people. The funds, where would the funds come from? From these half shekels. Every single Jew had a part in the daily offering. Even after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, so this took place until the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, we too, just last week in the Torah, we read Parsha Shekalim to commemorate and to remember this. We have an annual Torah portion that we read, an additional maftir. And not only that, there's a custom in most communities that right before Purim, everybody symbolically gives half of whatever currency of their country, which goes to tzedakah, to perpetuate and to commemorate and to keep this annual mitzvah alive. So that was one of the Terumas which existed. That's number 1. The second one and the third one were the capital campaign, which went to the one-time creation of the Mishkan. But interestingly, and this is what we're going to be discussing today, interestingly, it wasn't just everybody give the 13 or 15 items mentioned: gold, silver, copper, various dyed wools, stones, etc., precious stones, oil, etc. It wasn't just one fund. There were actually 2 funds, and then they were divided as follows. The first one we call the Trumas Adonim, which means here everybody gave, again, half a shekel. They were altogether, we'll read at the end of the book of Shmos how much there was. There was 1 kikar, 1,000, whatever it was. The weight of all the half shekels from the 603,550 people who contributed. And these were used to create the sockets that were the base for the boards, for the beams of the walls of the Mishkan. So you have these big beams. On the bottom of the beams, you have sockets, which were silver plated, which were covered with silver. The silver was, the funds for the silver came from these half shekels. That was one fund. The other was the general capital campaign where everyone gave as much as they could, whatever they could, however much they wanted, however generous they wanted. You can give more, you can give less. Everybody was able to contribute, and that was the third Truma. So you have the Trumas Hashkalim, the Truma of the half shekels, which we're not really going to be discussing today. You have the Truma of the Adanim, which are the sockets, and you have the Trumas HaMishkan, the contribution for the actual Mishkan. Now, as I mentioned before, the Trumas Hashkalim, the half shekels, which paid for the communal offerings, it's mentioned here in the Torah. It continued throughout Jewish history until the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and even post the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, it continues till today in some form. But the other two were one-time events that took place 3,331 years ago. They took place, and they're finished. And the Rebbe opens the Sikha with a premise which really is woven throughout the tapestry of the entire, all the Sikhas and all the talks of the Rebbe, which is that the word Torah comes from the word Hara. Torah, by definition, is a teaching. It's a lesson. It's meant to be alive today in the year Tafshin Pei, 5780. It's not something that was given many years ago. And therefore, the premise with which we're going to begin today's Sikha is that if the Torah decides to give precious real estate in the Torah to describe these two contributions, it must be because there must be some eternal value to us studying them and to us learning them. And therefore, our Sikha today is going to be covering what message, what eternal message, and why the Torah would spend the time to tell us and divide it into two parts. Tell us, no, I want you to know, it wasn't just one capital campaign. It was divided into two parts. One part everyone gave half a shekel towards. Another one everyone gave as much as they could. Why is that? What can we learn from that? Especially when it comes to the Mishkan. Because the Mishkan, one of the opening lines in this week's Torah portion, tells us the famous line, V'asol mikdash. Please build me this home, and I will dwell amidst them. The word uses b'seicham and not b'seichai. I will dwell amidst the Jewish people, amidst them, not in it. In other words, the function of creating this Mishkan, this home, is not just to have a geographical location somewhere in the Sinai desert that travels with them where God's presence will dwell. No. By creating this, we actually bring Hashem within our midst. And if that's true, that means that the two ingredients by which we bring Hashem into our midst today is through these two Trumas. These true Trumas must carry within them the secret to how we can bring Hashem within our midst today in our lives. And that's what we're going to cover in the Sikha for today. Okay? So, what do they mean in our lives? In general, we serve Hashem as individual and unique people, each with our own set of talents, with our own set of faculties, with our own emotional abilities, mental faculties. We each were endowed with certain gifts, and it's incumbent upon us to serve Hashem with whatever we got as individuals. Then we also share a common denominator. In other words, there's something about us which is equal. And we're going to now describe these two dual components in our lives as being the reflection of these two trumas, which means as follows. Each of us have a certain foundational dedication that each of us needs to have to Hashem. We start our day and we begin, we say, God, I'm yours. I'm devoted to you. We are giving ourselves, we are sort of removing our sense of selfishness, and we're saying, God, I am now Hashem. I'm willing to dedicate and devote my life to you. That every single Jew does, regardless of how smart he or she may be, how talented he or she may be. The greatest scholar and the simpleton both come before Hashem with that same devotion, that same dedication, and that same what's called Kabbalas ol Malchus Shamayim, that same acceptance of the yoke of heaven. This isn't necessarily the most exciting part of our relationship with Hashem, but like a tree that has branches and a trunk and has a lot going on, but what's most fundamental, its foundation is its roots. Each of us have our roots. And on this level, each of us is actually equal. There's no difference. There's no difference in the way the greatest of the great and the lowest of the low, each of them have to get up in the morning and say, Hashem, I'm yours. After I've devoted myself now, I say, okay, now what do you got? Well, somebody might have more abilities, less abilities, different abilities. Everyone uses their own flavors, colors, characters, and paints their beautiful picture to which Hashem wants. So this is this dual, because we have this dual relationship with Hashem. Therefore, when Hashem is telling us to build the home for Him, He tells us, we have to differentiate between these two. There has to be something which is used for the foundation. Remember, these sockets were the foundation of the boards, the beams of the walls. In order to create the foundation to bring Hashem into our lives, here we need to have a dedication, which really is this great, on this level, this is great equalizer. All of us have the same devotion. We come to Hashem, we all say, Hashem, Maida'ani, God, I'm yours, I get up in the morning, and this would be the parallel for the Trumas Adonim. After we do that, we have the Trumas HaMishkan. The Trumas HaMishkan, everybody now has to create the beams. Interestingly, the beams were 10 amas, 10 cubits tall. And spiritually within us, each of us have 10 faculties. We have 10 abilities. So we have to use our 10, and now we got to put up the walls. And you know what? Everybody's going to look different. We're all going to be different. There's going to be differentiations. Someone's going to serve Hashem in this way. Someone's going to serve Hashem more with their emotionally. They're able to use their mind. Other people used to use their resources, their finances, their prestige, whatever they have. So that's why the Torah divides them into two parts, to tell us that this is the way that two ways that we build the home for Hashem. Okay, sounds good. We can conclude here. However, we got a problem. What's the problem? The problem is as follows. Based on this, one would have expected to see a difference in terms of the way that these trumas were allocated, or were distributed. You see as follows. The truma for the Adonim, the truma for the sockets, you know who contributed to that? Only men from the ages of 20 to 60. We actually have the amount. There were 603,550 men between the ages of 20 and 60. They contributed each half a shekel. We know exactly how much it weighed, and they used one full kikar of silver to be able to plate all the sockets, all the Adonim. On the other hand, the Trumas HaMishkan, the contributions that were given towards building all the other materials, everybody was involved in that. Well, 1 minute. If we just spiritually explained that the Adonim, that the sockets, the contribution for the sockets was that dedication and devotion that each of us share equally, then it doesn't match. That should have been the one that everybody gives to. The Trumas HaMishkan, here I would have seen maybe differentiations. Maybe only guys would give this, women would give this. Here we almost see that the opposite. There's a paradox here. On the one hand, we've explained that the Trumas HaAdonim, that these sockets, the contribution, that's the devotion and dedication that each and every Jew has. Well, if that's true, then how come each and every Jew didn't contribute it? Only the men between the ages of 20 and 60. On the other hand, the Trumas HaMishkan, where everybody here is giving differently, here everybody gives. Second of all, and this is a little bit in the details, the minutiae, but when it describes the Trumas HaAdonim, when it describes the Truma for the sockets, it says the following. Everyone should give the same, but it doesn't just say everyone give the same. It says the rich should not give more, and the poor should not give less. In other words, the Torah is recognizing that there is a poor and there is a rich. There are differentiations, but they should be the same. Now, that would be wonderful if we were talking about the Trumas HaMishkan. That would be wonderful if we're talking about the contribution where everybody was different. But here, if we're trying to highlight the common denominator, if we're trying to highlight that devotion and dedication that each of us have within us, which is the same, why does the Torah feel the necessity to talk about rich and poor people? It just said, for the Trumas Adonim, everybody give the same. Because we're talking about a devotion and dedication which everyone is equal. No. The Torah says, no, you're not equal. I know they're rich people. I know they're poor people. But I want you to give it the same way. Sort of, it's almost like the Torah is highlighting the differences between us. So again, here's this Trumas Adonim, where we're all supposed to be equal and everybody's supposed to be devoted the same way. But number one, only the men between the ages of 20 and 60 are giving this. And number two, the Torah makes a point in highlighting the differences, albeit that they should give the same. Okay. So this question is really the segue into our Sikha for today. And here's the crux of it. A Jew gets up in the morning, and a Jew says, Maidani, God, I thank you, I acknowledge that you are there, Melech HaVakayim, you are the king, you gave me my soul back, I'm devoted, I'm dedicated to you. That's not what we're talking about. The Trumas Hadonim and the Trumas HaMishkan, neither of them are the Modani. Neither of them are that devotion and dedication. We are now going to go to step 2 and 3 of how we proceed in our day. You see as follows. When I come in the morning and I say, Hashem, I devote myself. I just woke up, started my day. I'm not saying this because I'm filled with an incredible feeling of devotion to Hashem. I'm not doing this because my mind is overwhelmed and overcome with the awesomeness of Hashem. I'm doing it as a soldier coming and say, I might not know, I might not understand, I just woke up, but I just want you to know, God, I'm yours. That's incredible, but that's not what we are referring to here. The Trumas Hadonim refers to the next stage of our day. And the next stage of our day is davening and saying Kriya Shema. And here we find something very, very interesting. Who has the obligation to say Kriya Shema? Who has the obligation really to say the words of davening as we have them? Men. Yes, there is an obligation for women to daven in a general sense, to ask Hashem for their needs. But primarily it is a mitzvah which is specifically for men. However, each of us say the same words of the davening. See, here we have on the one hand, you have only a specific segment of the population of the Jewish people are obligated to daven. On the other hand, they all do the same thing. That remind you of the Trumas Hadonim? Only a certain portion of the Jewish people contribute, but they all give the same amount. Then you have the second part of the day. Second part of the day, here you have learning and doing Torah mitzvahs and serving Hashem throughout the rest of the day. Well, when it comes to learning Torah, men, women, children, everybody has that obligation. When it comes to serving Hashem in mitzvahs, everybody has those obligations. When it comes to utilizing our time and utilizing our resources throughout the day to serve Hashem, everybody's obliged to do that. But everyone does it differently. So here we see, look at the parallels here. You have the Trumas Hadonim, where everyone gave the same, but it was only a certain segment of the population. When it comes to Kriya Shema davening, it's only a segment. Everyone does it the same way. Everyone says the same words, but it's only a segment of the population. However, when it comes to learning Torah, when it comes to doing mitzvahs, here all Jews are obliged to partake in that service of Hashem, but everyone does it differently. When it came to the Trumas HaMishkan, all Jews had to be involved. All Jews were involved, but everyone gave as much as they could afford whenever they wanted to give. So what we're seeing here is that the Trumas Hadonim and the Trumas HaMishkan are not just this blind dedication to Hashem and then serving Hashem with whatever we got, as we originally said. No. The Trumas Hadonim and the Trumas HaMishkan here are actually different. The Trumas HaMishkan is parallel to davening and Kriya Shema, whereas the Trumas HaMishkan, there the parallel would be learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. Okay, these are words. What do they mean, and how are we to understand this? What is the functioning of our davening? What is the functioning of Kriya Shema davening? Are we supposed to be on our own unique journey? Are we supposed to be dedicating ourselves to Hashem? What is the nature of davening? What is the nature of Kriya Shema? As we mentioned before, we start our day with a statement. Hashem, I am yours. But we do that with our eyes barely open. We do that blindly. We do that almost in spite of ourselves. In other words, Kabbalas ol malchus shamayim, accepting the yoke of heaven, which is the primary, fundamental, basic way that we start our day. That's done without an appreciation, without an understanding. As a matter of fact, I haven't thought about anything yet. I've made a declaration, I made a blind, dry statement. I've committed myself. I've signed the dotted line, I've said, yes, whatever you want, I'm here, I'm yours. But that's not what Hashem wants. That's the beginning of what He wants. But then what I do is now, I begin davening. You know what the purpose of davening? To take that commitment, to take that devotion, to take that dedication, focus on it, and internalize it. Internalize it within my mind and my heart. To the point that now I start connecting with it. I'm loyal to it. It's not me, it's it, but it becomes a part of me. I become a better person. So it's easy to close my eyes and say, Shema Yisrael. As long as I keep my eyes closed, yeah, God, you're one, I'm dedicated to you. But the minute I start opening my eyes and I start using my brain and my heart and I start thinking about things, I don't know. So therefore it's better that I remain sort of, just keep my mind and keep my heart closed. Don't journey too far, because the minute I start thinking and I start feeling, I'm entering dangerous territory. No. That's the beginning. The beginning, that's the way we start our day. And even we start childhood that way. We start with a blind, naive faith, which is the foundation for everything. But that's not the ultimate. The ultimate now is to take that blind, naive faith and to now internalize it. That is the function of davening. The function of davening, and therefore, spiritually, it is connected to those who are between the ages of 20 and 60. In other words, when I'm in my prime of my seichel and midas, when I have my 10 faculties in their glory. And the function of davening is, say the same words, don't have different words. Don't say something different. Say those same words, but connect to them. That is the function of davening. That is the function of Kriya Shema. And therefore, hence the dichotomy, hence the paradox. On the one hand, we have the same words. Why the same words? The same words because I need to be focused and loyal to that dry, blind, naive statement and dedication that I made. I'm yours. But that has to become a part of me. And therefore, the words might be the same, but it has to become a part of the full me. The full me, we mean the spiritual, heightened, greatest height of humanity between the ages of 20 and 60. The 10 faculties that I possess, that is the function of davening. Okay? So, step number 1, Moda'ani, that's not part of the equation over here. That's not one of the trumas. When do I start bringing God into my life? When do we start making a home for Hashem? When we take that Moda'ani, when we take that statement, and we start taking it apart. Word by word. V'yatziv v'nachan, it's true, it's just, it's proper, it's right. And we start looking at it and going on and dedicating ourselves to it. To making sure, is that real to me? Am I really willing to give up my life for it? Am I really willing to dedicate myself for it? I make that commitment over and over and over. And that's why davening is a repetitive exercise. The reason it's repetitive is because it's literally like an exercise. It needs to be repeated, repeat, and repeat until it becomes a part of me. And I think it through, and I internalize. And that's why davening should ideally, and for great chassidim, takes a long time. That's the function of davening. That's the function of Kriya Shema. That is the function of the Trumas Adanu. That is the foundation. That's how I build the sockets, and on those, the boards, the beams, the entire edifice and structure of the Mishkan will be built on that foundation. But the foundation can't just be a Maida'ani foundation. It can't just be a statement that's dry and that doesn't have me involved in it. Otherwise, it's not me talking. It's not my mind and my heart. It's I'm sort of being robotic at it. Hashem doesn't want us to be robots. He wants us to take that commitment and to internalize it and to make it a part of who we are. Hence, that is the Trumas Adanim. That is step number 1 after the commitment of Moda'ani. That is step number 1 in building the Mishkan. Okay. After that, now we're ready to build the Mishkan. What do you mean? What's the purpose? You see, ultimately, it's not about us at all. Ultimately, yes, we said the statement of Modani, now we internalized it and we've davened and we've learned and we said Kriya Shema. Now what are you going to do? Hashem put us in this world in order to transform, in order to do something. Now that I am in the mode where I am internalized and it's me, I'm ready. Now I'm ready to conquer the world. Now, whatever you got, give it all. This is the Trumas HaMishkan. When it comes to the Trumas HaMishkan, this is the fulfillment and the purpose of creation. A foundation is wonderful, but without a building, it is worthless. Roots of a tree are wonderful. Without the tree, it's worthless. So, as important as the Trumas Adonim is, and as important as that is, it's a necessary stage, but it's only a stage, it's only a means to an end. If one just remains this Jew who is dedicated to Hashem, and what are you going to do about it? Well, now we have to do mitzvahs. Now we have to learn Torah. Now we have to take this and we got to change the world. That's the function of Torah and mitzvahs. And here we have the other way around the parallel. Every single Jew, no matter who you are, no matter who you are, this is the purpose for which you're created. Whether you're a pitzel, a little child, whether you're, whatever you have, the beginning of life, the end of life, whatever you have, we got to dedicate it. Here, it's not a great equalizer that we're all the same. It's to the contrary. Every single Jew is needed and is part of this mission. How much you give? Whatever you got. However much you can give. If you're able to give more, you give more. If you're able to give less, you give less. And this is the Trumas HaMishkan. This is making a Dira Lo Yizbarach V'Tatein. We're building a home for Hashem. How are we building a home? First and foremost, through the Trumas Adonim, and then through the Trumas HaMishkan. When we do this, we take these 15 items, and we dedicate them, and we devote them to Hashem. Here is where we create the home for Hashem. Each and every day we go through these same steps. We say Moeda'ani, we say Kriya Shema, and we daven, and then we go out and we learn and we do mitzvahs. Is the purpose to learn and do mitzvahs? Yes. Can we do that without davening? No. Can we do davening without the Moeda'ani? No. And that's the reason that although it's not one of the trumas, as we conclude the Sichat for today, you're right, it's not one of the trumas. But what's going to happen in 3 weeks from now? Before Moshe even tells them about dedicating anything, Vayakel Moshe. Moshe is going to now go and gather the Jewish people together. The first thing Moshe do, he is the one who instills within them, arouses within them, evokes within them this Moeda'ani, God, I'm yours. Once he does that, now they can start giving the trumas on their own. But this is the job of Moshe. Moshe's job, that's why one of the trumas is not the Moeda'ani as we mentioned. No. That's Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he brings us all together and he says, guys, I'm going to reveal within you that spark that you have. You want to be committed to God. Here it is. Now, take it, work on it. Daven, say Kriya Shema, and ultimately bring it into the world. And this is true of the Moshe Rabbeinu of every generation. Moshe didn't just call the men from the ages of 20 and 60. He didn't just call the people who are going to be davening and saying Kriya Shema. He called the Jewish people. Their job is to take the Jewish people. We have to work on our own. But what is the Moshe's job? Moshe's job is to give us the match so that we can be able to ignite our souls and our neshamas, so that when we can ignite the entire world and bring a Dira Lo Yisbarach B'Tachtayim. This is an overview of the Sikha for today, and may we merit to be able to once again be reunited with all the Moshes of all generations who will take us towards the ultimate Moshe, the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, where we will see the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. We will be able to make a Dira Lo Yisbarach B'Tachtayim. Thank you very much.